welcome to Babbling Books. So I'm back after a month off, and I figured today I'll just go through the books that I have currently waiting to be read because there's quite a few. Don't know if people have seen my community post. It doesn't seem that they're getting many views. And I'm not sure, I mentioned in, I think it was my 2 years on YouTube video, that I really find personally it's hard to keep up with them because you have to scroll way down on the homepage to find them. And yeah, it'd be nice if there was just an easier way to do that. But anyway, I need to start getting some things finished up. The last week and a little bit, I've been moving things around. I've reorganized, always having to get this straightened out. I've reorganized some of my bookcase. So I've got my astronomy books out here now and my astrology books. I still have my psychic books. Now I have to take a boo. What else do I have? Oh, I have my chemistry and quantum physics, some alternate theories, so different channeled works, things like that, and all the different psychic books and channelers. So that's all out here now. And in my other room, so if you've seen my other videos with the big cubes behind me now, I've moved my motivational, inspirational books there. So my Dan Millman, Martha Beck, Paulo Coelho books, other authors as well. I have all my ancient studies books set across, well, 3 cubes and 1 up, because I have quite a few books that go from Atlantis, Mayans, Aztecs, Egyptians, I have the Celts, and various books in between. A number of books on the Templars and the Masons. That's all going to connect in with the Da Vinci Code, the secrets of the code, and that huge spiral that went everywhere. So things are ever so slowly starting to come together. This cube is still going to be my currently reading books, and I have a few in there that I haven't started yet. I have Bloodline of the Holy Grail. That's the 3rd book of the Lawrence Gardner books that I have. So I still need to finish that one. I have the Darkest Powers trilogy. That's by Kelly Armstrong. I haven't started that one yet, but as I was getting a bit into it, it almost makes me think of Percy Jackson, again, a youth with different abilities, and that all goes with the mythology and events. And there's another series, and I can't think of the name of it. They made it in Mortal Instruments, and I can't think of the author right now. But again, we have a young woman in her teens and, starting to come into her own, and then meets all these other people and events unfold from there. So I'm curious to see how the Darkest trilogy goes. This morning, I checked out my public library, the catalog online, and they do have, is it called the Darkest trilogy as well? I know it starts with the Golden Compass, and there's 2 more books to it. My library, and thankfully the branch I typically go to, has that on the shelf, so I'm looking forward to going to pick that up this weekend and have another read. But in the meantime, I still have a bunch of books that I need to finish from my 2023 currently reading list, and then I've been picking up books and getting into other things. So I have The Caves of the Sun. This is by Adrian Bailey, and this has to do with the origin of mythology. So it goes into a variety of different cultures, the importance of the sun to their belief systems. And again, this ties in with all the other readings that I've done in terms of Sitchin and various mythology and ancient civilizations. Another book that I have to get back to, I've read through it quickly once, now I need to go back through a second time, is The Seed of the Soul. This is by Gary Zukov. I don't remember reading it before last year, but when I was looking through when I belonged to a book club here in my area, I had this title written down, and I don't remember covering it with them. I know we read The Alchemist and The Untethered Soul, but I don't remember reading The Seed of the Soul. It was a great book. I'm looking forward to going through it again. I think I'm going to end up doing that sooner than later because some of the banned books have been very heavy reads. So I think I need to get into something a bit light and uplifting soon. Another book that I need to finish is Care of the Soul. This is a guide for cultivating depth and sacredness in everyday life. This is by Thomas Moore. It is one of the books that I have read before. It's also one of the books that I used to own before and ended up repurchasing through my local thrift store. So when I get this finished, I have another book that I want to put it together with in a video and talk about how both of those books can help uplift and inspire. I started Seth Speaks months ago now. I think I put, yep, I did, August the 4th, 2023. So it's been quite a while that I've been getting through this. But like always with books, I found that I've picked it up when I've needed to read the different information and get some inspiration from it. This is The Eternal Validity of the Soul. This work is by Jane Roberts. She was a medium, and Seth would speak through her. Her husband, Robert Butts, would transcribe what Jane said, and he used his own form of shorthand, and then he would type up the notes from their sessions. So much like with Edgar Cayce many years before that, because when Edgar shared information, whether it was about past lives or medical issues and treatments, Edgar, like Jane, would go into a trance. Edgar did not, sorry, I got an itchy nose. Edgar did not say that he was speaking specifically to anyone, as Jane does in saying she's speaking, or that Seth comes through. So in Edgar's case, he would simply share the information, and he also, it may have been his wife, but he may have had an assistant. I'll need to go back and check on that and read it. But I know he had someone who recorded what he said during those trance sessions. And then, like Jane, with Edgar Cayce, all of his records and previous readings are in Virginia. His son had set up a building there, and so all his records are there, and I believe he has a foundation as well. Probably find a number of things about him on the internet. Jane's work after her passing was donated by her husband. It says in the back, because I know I just read it the other day, and I'm almost finished. I'm into the appendix right now, so I'm just about finished with the book, and then I'll have to go through again to gather information. Um, so Jane Roberts was born May the 8th, 1929. She passed away on September the 5th, 1984. So she's been gone for 40 years. I didn't realize it was quite that long ago. Talks about where she attended college, that she was a prolific writer, and Yale University Library is where Jane's work, her writing, her journals, her poetry, her audio, and her video recordings should still be there. They were donated after her death, as I say, by her husband. It's an interesting read, and I will definitely be doing a Hoax or Holy Grail episode about Jane. She had been around for quite some time. She taught ESP classes. As it said in the back, she was also a prolific writer. Her husband was a painter, I believe. I haven't really looked up much about him, but I want to do her episode first because for some who may or may not be aware, if you've heard of Esther Hicks or Abraham, Jerry and Esther met. Jane Roberts attended a session, and it was after that that they began working with meditation and trying to make connections. And that's where, after a period of time, Esther made a connection with Abraham, and their journey began. From that journey, for those who are familiar with The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, I think that's correct. Rhonda Byrne had attended a session with Esther Hicks, and that's where everything from The Secret flowed. But I could tell reading Seth Speaks and some of the phrases that Esther says in her sessions. So there really is that connection between all three and how that information is flowing out. There are some people who really enjoy The Secret. I read it. It didn't really resonate with me. I've read some of Esther's works. I've enjoyed them, as I have the videos on YouTube. Not only does she have her own channel, but there are a number of other people who show little bits and clips, and she's given permission for people to do that. So it really is a fascinating journey of how all these individuals have those connections, and the information gets out to the people who are interested in it. So I'm looking forward to finishing that, and that will be 4 books off my list. Another book that I had started in 2023 and I really need to get back to is Journeys with Plant Spirits. This is plant consciousness, healing, and natural magic practices. And this is by Emma Farrell. So this is about working with plants and trees, getting to know the plants in your area, doing some various meditation exercises. It's been an enjoyable read so far. She also talks about different classes and courses, which of course is great if you're someone who travels or has that kind of money, which not all of us do. So we make do with books and learn the best we can. And and making connections. So I'm looking forward to finishing this book. I'm only on page 62 at the moment, and it goes up to, shows bibliographies and notes, 255. So just under 200 pages to finish that one. The last one that I still have outstanding from 2023 are Gods of the New Millennium. This is by Alan F. Alford, and this is work, if you've read Zacharias Sitchin and his 6-volume series, The Earth Chronicles. Alan Alford took a look at Zachariah's work, and Zachariah's work was completed after 30 years of research and putting all that information together. Alan took 10 years and did some additional research, travels, compared things with the Bible, came up with some ideas that were different than Zechariah. I think that's important to note because both of these men took their series and the hypothesis that they were putting forward seriously. They didn't just, look at a couple things and decide, oh, this is what I think makes sense. They really dug deep, looked into different things, and tried to come up with the different ideas and what made the most sense for them. So it's important to note, and I'm not really sure. I mean, Zechariah made some interesting points, but I don't completely agree with where he's coming from for different reasons. And as I review his books, I'll talk a bit more about that. I haven't read Alan Alford's book in probably close to 15 years, and I'm not very far into it. And this isn't the type of book that you just pick up and can plow through. With a fiction book, you can quickly get through it, as I have with several in the last little while. But with this type of a book, you really have to kind of stop and think about what you've read and take some time to process different parts of it. So those are the books that I need to finish from 2023. Now, this year in 2024, I've again kind of gone off track with what the plan was, and I've gotten into the banned book project. So that was reading 24 books in 2024. I've now completed 8 out of the 24. I have a few more that I have planned. I originally had my list together, but I think I'm going to pick a few different titles, some of that based on what I can find in my area. It's definitely been an eye-opener in terms of what's no longer available through a public library, and it's become a big issue. I've done a 3-part series on it. I started it as a hoax or holy grail because, of course, there are people who don't think libraries are decreasing in resources, school or public libraries. So I figured that would be a good heading to put it in. I've separated that into 3 videos. It was a long one to begin with. So the first video looks at what are banned books. I talk about the 24 in 2024 project, and I list all my sources that I referred to put the information together. Part 2 of that series involves Canada specifically and even narrows it down more to Ontario, where I live. So what's going on here, what's happening in our schools, bring it a little closer to home. Part 3, I looked at the United Kingdom, the United States, the issue of burning books, about being able to delete books off of machines, And, how does that all play out? Because people have a number of ebooks and read on their technology, their audiobooks, their ebooks. So that was part 3 of the series. I still haven't done videos, on the individual books that I've read. And part of that is because I want to sit, put the notes together, and some of the books will pair up. So books like Go Ask Alice and Looking for Alaska, I will do together in a video because they both involve teenagers, issues with drugs, relationships, choices that people make, very important reads. I'm trying to think of perhaps, I know I've read Lord of the Flies, Of Mice and Men. Not sure if I'll do those two together as they're a bit different. One deals with a group of young boys, the other deals with two men and the choices and relationships. I also have 1984. I've got my draft notes done because in that case, I'm looking more at what is different 40 years later. I mean, Orwell was, taking a guess at the world for in the future from when he was writing in the 1940s. And we're now 40 years after that fact. So, what are some of the things that Orwell had seen as part of society? And have we actually seen those things happen by 2024? The Handmaid's Tale, I just read. I'll be doing a more in-depth video about that in the future. I'm still doing a buddy read with Book Blather and reading Revenant Reading. I hope I've got that in the right order. Sorry, Vin, if you ever watch this. So I'm still finishing up that buddy read with the two of them. So after we've completed that, I'll do a video actually comparing 1984 with The Handmaid's Tale because I'd read both of these back when I was a teenager, and that makes it quite a while ago, and I'd forgotten just how similar those two books are. I mean, in 1984, we get it from a man's perspective, and we know the events have occurred a bit in the past when the world started changing because that character only gets little snippets of memory about what the world was like beforehand. In The Handmaid's Tale, her memories, so we're getting it from a woman's perspective, her memories are very clear, and we get a sense that whatever happened to change the dynamics of the world and how people did things, it wasn't that long ago. So, a very interesting comparison to make with the two of them. So, I need to be working on that. I still, because I've been getting into other things, I have my books about Helena Blavatsky put aside. I now need to read them and start pulling all that information together to put together the episode on her for Hoax and Holy Grail. So I have a number of different things going. In my part 2 of the banned book series, I did talk about an author, Joanna Williams, who was not allowed to speak at our public library in March 2023. And I was very curious to find out why. She's a British activist. She has an organization in Britain, and her book, How Woke Won. I ended up buying it. Well, actually, my sweet husband bought it for me, but I ended up having to order it because the library doesn't have a copy of it. I'm not sure why. I'm only partway through it. There's definitely some food for thought. It has definitely concerned me about the future and things that are going on. But it also led me to find some other YouTube channels and people who I actually don't feel so bad now because they've clarified things in terms of no, everybody isn't on this. Let's get the white people train or whatever you want to call it. I've found a video that I'd seen quite a few months ago that was put out by an individual, and he was also saying, this has got to stop. It's inappropriate. And he had examples of various people from TikTok, and it's just mind blowing. Because if anyone said that about their race, they'd be screaming from the rooftops. But because they're saying it about white people, it doesn't seem to be an issue for them. I mean, one woman, it was just revolting to watch her. And the way that she said the word white, I mean, she either had a hairball or something. It truly boggles my mind what some people will say and upload, and it doesn't even faze them. But it was interesting finding that video again, because of course, as you find videos on YouTube, then there's other videos down the side. So I came across a few other channels who were actually responding. I don't want to say react because they weren't negative about it, but they were watching the videos and sharing their comments about the thoughts. And it was very interesting because they weren't, how do I want to say it? They were watching it and they were as equally disgusted as I was. And no, they weren't white. And it was interesting to hear their perspective. They were very well spoken. I appreciated the one individual because one of these TikTokers was just totally off on a rant. And the one content creator said, and rightly so, don't tell me how I'm supposed to respond to a situation. And just for the record, he talked about where he had grown up in LA and different circumstances he'd been in. And like I say, he was very well spoken. The other group I watched were 5, I'm guessing, friends. And they also responded to this video, and they were equally blown away by things that some of these people were saying and the accusations that were being made. And I'll talk more about that when I get into talking about this book and some other things as well. And the last book that I'm reading right now is Whispers by Dean Koontz. This is the second Dean Koontz that I've come back to revisit. I'm partway done, so possibly this afternoon we'll have to see. Anyway, that's kind of where I'm at. It seems that Tuesday afternoons are going to be even quieter than the Friday live streams, so I'm not sure what's happening. I'm either picking the wrong time, or people are busy, or people just aren't interested. It's the challenge of communicating with someone in person versus trying to communicate with them on technology. If you don't make that connection or you don't get feedback, you're kind of guessing and never really sure. Anyway, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot because I'm just talking to myself, which seems kind of silly. So those are the books that I'm reading. In terms of the channel, continuing on with bookish content, nature videos. I'll continue with the kids on Fridays because I know they don't get many views, but I do know that there are a number of people who look forward to and enjoy them. Not quite sure where I'm going with the fairy tales. I did realize making those how much I miss reading. It was something I enjoyed doing when I worked in schools, and it's something I continue to enjoy. So I don't know if I'm going to continue with the fairy tales on Mondays or whether I'm going to switch to reading something else or just going back to making bookish content in terms of book summaries. But like I say, this month I'm definitely going to be looking at some lighter fictional type of reads because, yeah, some of these banned books, they're good, they're important. I'm glad I read them again, but they are very challenging reads, particularly now with different events in the world. And reading 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale were challenging enough as a teenager, but some of the things going on in the world now, particularly in relation to this woke cancel culture stuff, it really makes me wonder where we're going some days. I mean, I know there are a lot of people out there who don't buy into that type of stuff and are certainly working to try and bring humanity together rather than all these separate divisions. So I don't know. I'm hoping things pick up and start turning around. We definitely need the light, and I know there's a lot of it out there. I'll be happy if some of it comes to find my channel and be able to start making those connections. But anyway, for today, I'm going to sign off for now. Hope you have a great one and take good care.